When you think about modern war, what comes to mind? Probably stealth jets, right? Maybe some high-tech missile shields. But what if I told you the most powerful weapon isn't a bomb at all? What if it's a bottleneck? We're about to dive into a hypothetical conflict where the real battle isn't just on the ground or in the air, but across the entire global economy, hitting its most fragile supply chains. All right, so let's set the scene. The year is 2026. It's February 28th, and a conflict between a U.S.-Israel coalition and Iran just kicks off. And this thing escalates fast. We're talking one of the most technologically intense battles we've ever seen. This isn't your granddad's ground war. No, this is a high-stakes, high-tech showdown, and believe me, it is expensive. And the scale? It's just immense. Right from the get-go, Iran unleashes this overwhelming barrage. We're talking more than 500 ballistic missiles screaming across the Middle East. And they're not just aiming anywhere. They're targeting crucial military bases, oil fields, all the key stuff. But wait, it's not just missiles. That would be too simple, right? The attacks are coming from all angles. On top of that massive missile barrage, they also launch over 1,000 drones. Imagine trying to defend against that. It just creates this incredibly complex, saturated mess for the defenders. The whole point is just to overwhelm them, to wear them out until something, somewhere, breaks.
So this all brings us to the real heart of the military conflict here. It's basically a 21st century showdown between two totally different ways of fighting a war. It's the swarm versus stealth.
So on one hand, you've got Iran's whole strategy. And it's pretty simple, really. Use tons and tons of cheap weapons to just overwhelm the other side's defenses. But then you look at the US and Israel. Their approach is the complete opposite. They rely on these super advanced, technologically superior, and incredibly expensive systems that are all about precision. So what you've got is a classic battle: quantity versus quality.
Let's look at how this swarm idea actually works. A key player here is the Shahed 136 kamikaze drone. You've probably heard of it. The whole idea with these swarm tactics is to send so many of them at once that you completely saturate the enemy's air defense. You force these multi-million-dollar defense systems to fire expensive interceptors at relatively cheap drones. It's an economic war as much as a physical one. You're basically trying to make them go broke just defending themselves.
Okay, so how do you even begin to defend against that? Well, the US and its allies have this incredibly sophisticated, layered system. Think of it like a cake, but for defense. You've got your top layer, these high-altitude systems like THAAD, designed to knock out ballistic missiles way up there. Then you've got your Patriot systems for threats that are a little lower. And of course, you've got the heavy hitters, advanced stealth planes like the B-2 bomber and Israel's F-35I Adir that can sneak past enemy lines. Every single layer has a specific job to do. But here's the thing, this whole fight, it isn't just happening in the skies over the Middle East. No, the real shockwaves from this conflict ripple out and are felt through one single incredibly narrow strip of water. And that little strip of water, it connects this regional fight to, well, pretty much the entire global economy. We're talking, of course, about the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, look at it. At its narrowest point, the shipping lane is just a couple of kilometers wide. It's tiny, and yet, this little choke point is basically the world's energy jugular. Get this, something like 20% of all the oil the world consumes passes through here, and a third of all the world's liquefied natural gas, too. It's absolutely critical. I mean, just look at this map. You can see how central this waterway is. Now, in our scenario, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps makes a huge move. They declare the strait is closed. They put out a warning that any ship, any vessel trying to get through will be targeted. And just like that, poof, the world's most important energy artery is completely blocked. So what does that actually mean for the rest of the world? Well, let's take a country like India. Think about this, almost half. We're talking 46.9% of all the crude oil they import comes right from the Middle East, passing through this very spot. So a closure of the strait, it's not just a supply disruption. It's a direct threat to the energy security of some of the biggest economies on the planet. Okay, so let's talk money. What does this all mean in actual dollars and cents? What is the real, tangible price the world would have to pay if the Strait of Hormuz gets shut down? Well, the impact on oil prices would be immediate and it would be severe. I mean, even a partial disruption pushes prices up to $85 a barrel. But a full closure for just 4 weeks, we could see prices hit $100. And if that closure lasts for 8 weeks, we're talking $110 a barrel. A price like that would send just massive shockwaves through the entire global economy. And you know, this goes way beyond just what you'd pay at the pump. Higher energy costs mean everything gets more expensive.
Shipping costs go up, insurance premiums go up. That means inflation on everyday stuff goes up. It puts pressure on national currencies, and it absolutely squeezes the profits of businesses all over the world. It's like a domino effect, a cascading economic crisis. Which brings us to what a modern conflict like this is really all about. It's not just a test of who has the biggest guns or the fastest jets. It's a brutal test of economic stamina. It really just becomes a war of endurance.
Yeah, this quote here from Puneet Kansal at CareEdge Ratings really nails it. A full closure, even if it's just for a few weeks, isn't just about high oil prices. It could mean actual shortages of liquefied natural gas all across Asia and Europe. We're talking power grids and entire industries getting disrupted. The economic pain would be just severe, and it would be felt everywhere.
So at the end of the day, we're left with this really big question. When you have billion-dollar stealth bombers trying to counter swarms of cheap drones, the whole math of war just changes completely. When maybe the most effective weapon you have is just closing a shipping lane. It stops being about who has the best tech. It becomes about who can simply afford to keep fighting. So the real question is, how sustainable is a sustained high-tech war, really? And that's the critical question we have to face when we look at the